Hi everyone, you're watching the Virtual Amicus and I am Jay Lodha. So for the first time on the Virtual Amicus, we'll be discussing and covering three different topics. The first one would be on the New York University LLM Master's Program. Second would be on the LSE LLM Master's Program. And third, a career as a tax professional. Now, when we talk about the prestigious LSE University, LSE is a leading program that is delivered at one of the world's top and best law schools, is unmatched in the international competitive and interdisciplinary approaches as it offers such wonderful courses. LSE Law School is one of the world's top law schools with an international reputation for the quality of its teaching and legal research. LSE LLM also offers the highest quality of teaching provided by leading international and UK academics, and approach is always to combine views and experiences from disciplinary traditions and jurisdictions. Also, LSE alumni and faculty include 55 past to present heads of state government as well as 18th Nobel laureates. Now, when we talk about the New York University, the NYU Law School program, which is the master's program, it's a professional graduate law school of New York University, established back in 1835. And it is time and again ranked amongst the top law schools in the world. And it has produced the highest number of judges sitting at the International Court of Justice, as well as numerous Nobel laureates, prominent US lawyers, etc. and etc. Now, joining us today in this fifth, if I'm not wrong, fifth border recording, fifth international recording, is someone who needs absolutely no introduction. Well, she's done and finished her two master's program, one from the prestigious NYU University, the other from the London School of Economics, and now she works as a senior associate at international tax at the PwC in New York. And just to give you a brief introduction about our Amicus for today's session, today we are joined by Mrs. Surabhi Shekhawat Thakur. And just to give you all a brief introduction, she graduated from Government Law College back in 2014, where she won the Best Student Award for the year 2012. She's also won the very prestigious Chagla National Moot Court Competition, as well as the second best team at Surana and Surana Trial Advocacy, which is the NLU Kochi, and also secured the gold medal at the Grand Moot Court Competition. She pursued her master's in LLM in International Tax and Business Laws from London School of Economics and Political Science back in 2016, where she led the pro bono wing of the LLM committee, the student committee there, as well as served as a member of the Tax Law Society and was on the LSE delegation to the OECD Paris. And subsequent to that, she also did her master's LLM in International Tax Program from NYU, which is globally ranked at the topmost position and accepts only 24-27 students. As far as professional circuit is concerned, she currently works as a senior associate in international tax at PwC New York. She's also briefly worked in a research assistant capacity with the Economics Financial Committee at the Indian Mission to the United Nations, New York. And she's also practiced in tax advisory and litigation roles at the Bombay High Court and tax tribunals. So thank you so much, Surabhi, for taking our time. We so sorry we spoiled your weekend plans. It's Saturday morning out there. You've achieved a lot in a very short span of time. How do you manage to stay so humble?
So firstly, hi Jay, and thank you for that kind introduction. And this is the perfect use of my Saturday morning time. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me over.
Fantastic. Now I can't wait for this Q&A session. If you're ready, we can start.
Sure, let's go ahead.
Fantastic. Now, so talking about the LLM Masters program, at what stage of the LLB undergrad course did you decide to further study further and pursue the master's program?
Mm-hmm. So this was when I was back in GLC. I would say around 2013, maybe. I was thinking, I saw a lot of seniors who were going for their master's program. So I was really curious whether I want to do one. And I did feel like I wanted to study further and specialize in a few subjects. Coincidentally, like there was this one specific occasion which convinced me that I want to do the LLM. Is I was, like you mentioned in your introduction, I was on the Grand Moot Court competition. And like after the rounds had concluded, I was speaking with one of the judges who is an alum from Harvard and did his LLM from there. So I was speaking with him about how his experience was, and one of our professors from GLC about what is the benefit of doing a master's. So I thought that the reasons they gave about the kind of teaching that the teaching exposure you get, the kind of students you're with in classes out there, etc., that is amazing. So I would say I was still in my undergrad in my fourth year of LLB when I thought I wanted to focus on doing a master's later on.
Very well. And now when we talk about, the importance of a robust CV, SOP, statement of purpose, good grades, how important are they? And when is the applicant required to start with the preparation or the application process?
Mhm. So generally, like this was my experience with both LSE and NYU, that the application procedures start at least like a year before. So it's good to start planning ahead of time. And in terms of having a robust CV, yes, definitely the kind of people who are applying for these programs, they have stellar CVs, they have like different achievements, like they've won maybe competitions or they have publications in legal journals, and definitely like good grades are important. But I would want to like make one point of distinction that depending on which jurisdiction you're applying to for your masters, like UK versus the US, from my observation in the US, the universities do value if you have some amount of work experience, and the UK is a little more academic. So I think that the US universities look at an overall combination, but it's not a prerequisite, but it's just something which will help you. And in terms of like the application procedure and the SOP, so generally you would require like letters of recommendations, which could include people you have worked with, like your immediate supervisors. It could be your professors. So when I was at LSE, I took, I think, three letters of recommendations, two from my professors and one from the senior I was working with at that point, because I worked for a year before doing my LSE LLM. And when I was at NYU, which I did later, the second master's, I took two letters of recommendations, one from a professor, one from my supervisor. And statement of purpose, I think, out of all of these documents that you're submitting, is the most important, because it's basically you're telling your story. I think one thing, like one mistake I made initially when I was drafting my SOPs, which then I would send to seniors to review, and one common feedback I got, which I observe now when people send to me their SOPs, is we tend to regurgitate what we have in our CV just in the SOP. But the SOP is not meant to just repeat what we already have given in our CV. We should try to tell a story about like why this subject, why this university, and what are our future goals. So I think that's something that we should keep in mind, like while making the application.
Very well. So I think in a nutshell, to sum it up, SOPs are more about narration of stories, your own stories, which have to be original, authentic, and there has to be absolutely no plagiarism to that extent, no copy paste, nothing. So
Yeah, definitely.
very well.
Yeah.
Now, going ahead with our next question, when you talk about courses that are available or that the prestigious NYU or the LSE has to offer, what all courses are available? Which ones did you opt for? And if you talk about your personal experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it firstly would depend on which specialization like you want to pick. Like, and I will answer this specifically in the context of tax. So when I was at LSE, like from what I recall, we could take up to 7 subjects, and then we had one thesis. So out of the 7 subjects, 4 to 5 of my topics were in tax. Like I took one in international tax, one was in consumption tax, which is basically like indirect tax and VAT, tax policy, etc. But just because I was really curious to also study a few other subjects, I took one in arbitration and one in competition law. And my thesis focused completely like on taxation of the digital economy, because that was a very hot topic at the OECD at that point and still continues to remain. So I would say at LSE, like you have a bit more flexibility in terms of what courses you want to take. At NYU, if you're applying for the tax program specifically, because the tax program at NYU is so prestigious, you have to take like a particular set of subjects in order to meet the requirements to get that degree of tax LLM. Otherwise, it would become like a general LLM. So, like for example, if I had 8 course, and the US schools have a credit system. In UK, I think you just pick courses, but out here you get a number of credits in the US, and each subject is allotted a number of credits. So in tax, like I had international tax, corporate tax, and it was completely tax focused. But if you want to give like the bar exam, you need to take a few courses which are like a prerequisite to be eligible to give the bar exam. So I had a few miscellaneous subjects like that as well.
Oh, very well. Going ahead with our next question. Now, when we talk about the examination pattern and the lectures that are conducted, how different are they from the ones that are conducted here in India? Because you've graduated from Government Law College, Mumbai. Are the professors more approachable there? Because the other day, Mr. Bhandari did mention about the approachability factor. That there you have at Cambridge University, you have one-on-one interactions with the professors, and then there is a day-to-day base, assessment that takes place that really helps every student at a personal level as well. So are the
Yes,
professors really approachable, and is the examination pattern, the kind of lectures that are conducted, different from the ones here?
I would say to some extent, yes. In the UK at LSE, we did manage to have a lot of interaction with our professors. But I think that was also because in most cases, the class size of my tax classes was pretty small, because as I think everybody would relate to, not a lot of people end up going with tax just because of how technical the subject is. So the class size was a little small, but we got to interact a lot with the professors. And the good thing was that, like, if I ever was stuck while studying, like if I didn't understand a concept, we could just book like an appointment with the professor, and then you could have a one-on-one session and discuss like what your question was and what is his view. So it was very interactive, and they were very approachable. They had office hours, and that was my same experience here, even at NYU. In terms of like the teaching methodology, I would say that in US, some law schools, like generally law schools, have a culture of cold calling, in which like the professors just know the names of all the students, and and you're given like the what is going to be taught in the next class a little before. That this was true for LSE and NYU. So you had time to study. So the professors are actually expecting you to be prepared when you come to class, to be engaging. Because the purpose of these LLM courses in general is that you're not learning only from the professors, you're also learning from your peers, because most people in your class have a lot of experience. Like at NYU, I had classmates who had like 7 to 10 years of experience as well. So we were all learning together. They would share experiences about how they tackled an issue from their country's perspective when they worked with the tax authorities in their home country. So we had to be really prepared, and the professors would just ask you a question and you can engage with them, cross question, and they will not hesitate if you like interrupt them at all. And it does sound a little scary, because it's like you can get picked up to answer a question anytime. But I think the professors are also very understanding of the fact that as international students, we are not used to this way of teaching. So if you're stuck or if you don't understand, they will help you completely understand what the issue is and how you should be studying for it, how you should be preparing. So, and also one point was, at least at NYU, like for some of our classes, class participation also counts towards your grades. So that's not for all the classes, but yeah, for some of them. So in terms of that, it was a little different. But I would say at GLC as well, although it was like a complete classroom structure where like if you want, you can ask questions, but otherwise it's just like you're listening to what your professor is saying. I was lucky to have one or two professors who were very interactive and very case study focused when they would be teaching like contracts and some subjects like these. And if I had questions, I could go up to them. So I think a lot of it also depends on like how lucky you are with which professor is teaching that course.
And I think anywhere in the world, the tax class would always be small in size. The number of students will always be selective few, because not many people are
Yeah,
inclined towards this field. So
exactly. Yeah,
now
it is true.
it is true.
And I can understand that why, because sometimes when I'm studying, I do feel like I'm not understanding anything. And I would discuss it with my colleagues at work, and they would say that it's completely normal because of how the field is. But it's just that if you have the interest, then things like, and you just keep working in that field, you concepts start becoming more clear. So that's like a disclaimer for anybody who wants to come into tax but is scared of it. You'll be fine.
But I think it's always better to study taxation first at the graduation level when you're pursuing your 5 years or 3 years course, in tax. And then just to have that horizon and, you have that perspective and then to subsequently work in that field and decide whether you want to pursue masters in taxation or not, because it's
Yes,
a super specialized field. So that is
that's
always,
true.
yeah.
Hmm.
Now,
Because, sorry,
yeah, please
uh,
go.
uh, because to the point that you made, actually, like that was also one of the factors when I decided about why tax and about the LLM, was because when I was in GLC, I did the Nani Palkiwala moot. We were representing GLC. I think we went up to the semifinals, but that experience was really nice. We got to argue in the courtrooms at the tax tribunal at the ITAT in Mumbai. And that was my first proper interaction with tax. I was just testing myself whether tax is something meant for me. I really enjoyed the whole experience, and GLC does offer tax as an optional subject, I think in the fourth or the fifth year. So I did take that up, and yeah, that also helped me decide that this is a subject I want to go with. So it's
So
good
to
to
all,
try out.
yeah, to all the viewers who are watching, it is very important to get your first brushes with this field. You could do it by way of a moot court competition where your interaction with taxation happens at the very college level, and you can also pursue some course on taxation. It's always better, and subsequently work in that field, in that area, and associate yourself with a law firm or particular chamber, so that when you go ahead and take a notch further and study masters, then that will really help you a lot. Now,
Mhm.
when you talk about campus life, any memorable experiences that you wish to share, any lessons that you've learned, and how did the master's program there benefit you on your work at your workplace?
Yeah, in terms of memorable experiences, like I would say, like at NYU, we had like a lot of events which NYU itself would organize. And we got to like interact with recruiters, and I think this was something which was unique for me at NYU. Was they have like this thing where all the big four firms, that is PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, and EY, they come to the campus, and people from different ranks working with them would come and interact with just our students. And you can imagine that because our class was just 26 students, we were interacting with professionals from these big four firms, and they were like one-on-one answering all our questions, because we were very curious to know about what kind of work the firm does, what kind of career growth we can expect, and what kind of courses to take. So I would be talking with people like who are partners with these firms, and they are very patiently answering all my questions and acting more like my guides. So I think that was something very memorable for me, because of just how approachable the work culture was. But although we became the infamous COVID batch, because my second term was hit by COVID. So my first term was in person, but my second term went completely virtual because of the pandemic. So that's the immemorable part of it. And at LSE also, I think the memorable, because that was my first international experience, like going outside and studying. I think the best part was about studying and meeting people from such diverse backgrounds from so many different countries, because I think I learned a lot, not just about law, but about culture and the thought process, governance, policy, etc., from all the people that I just was studying with, because everybody was very interested in sharing about their background.
Fantastic. Now, talking about mentor, who was your mentor here, in Government Law College Mumbai, who guided you with all the paperwork, the application procedure, then the mentor at LSE, and then mentor at NYU? Or did you
Mm-hmm.
at all have any?
I think I had one common mentor throughout all of this, and we all would know him. Like at least all the GLC folks who are listening to this would be Professor Daswani. He was also mentoring us for the moot that I was preparing for when I was at GLC. And then I spoke with him about my idea about doing the LLM, and he was very encouraging. He gave me like a very good perspective. And what I found very helpful was that he listed out the pros and cons of doing an LLM versus not doing. And I think that is very important, because when we look for a mentor, we want somebody who gives us personalized guidance and not just something in general. So I found my interactions with him throughout my this educational journey very helpful. And I've had a lot of other mentors, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure I'm making a note of him. And at NYU, I think apart from Professor Daswani, I was very lucky to have met two seniors who had done the international tax program at NYU about 6 years before I had done it. And they were working with like law firms or big four firms here in New York. And I just happened to reach out to them like on LinkedIn before I was starting the LLM because I wanted to know how their experience was. So I reached out to a lot of people, and a lot of people were very kind to talk to me, answer my questions, etc. But in particular, these two seniors, they were very helpful in telling me what subjects I should take because the US LLM is very practical. It's basically what you will apply to the industry. So we are not doing something theory. Like my tax classes actually involved, like we had sums, like calculations, case studies. It was not just writing theory and the code sections. So they really guided me through that. In fact, they also took my practice interviews before I sat for the placements. So I think I was very lucky with that, like in terms of mentorship.
Fantastic. And wait, this is my personal favorite question. What would be your piece of advice to all the young lawyers, young all the other law students who wish to apply to both NYU and LSE for a master's program there?
My first advice would be to watch Jay's channel because there are a lot of people here who are sharing amazing experience. So we can learn a lot from them. And I think that is also what I have learned is like it's very helpful to talk to people who have been through the experience because we get to learn like what worked for them or what did not work for them, what works for, and everyone's individual personality style is also very different. Like I would say that I became even more outgoing after coming here to New York. And that's also because out here, the legal industry really requires you to do a lot of networking. That is reaching out to people, talking to them, building connections. It's a very important part of your professional journey. So we should have like prepare like a good set of questions. This is what I would do. Like ask the person you're speaking with, like what motivated them to take up this career path, like what didn't work for them or what worked for them, etc., etc. So like that's going to be my biggest advice. Just talk to people before making a decision because a lot of things look glamorous from the outside and maybe sometimes they are not, or vice versa. So yeah, it's better to go with a decision in an informed way rather than just because something is glamorous on the outside.
Very well. So to all the viewers who are watching, please take her advice seriously and do watch my channel. Subscribe, share, like, and share it with as many people as possible who wish to have a successful career like Surabhi. So, and when we talk about scholarships, I think that keeps changing. So let's not delve into scholarships and the visa requirements because anyways, any cursory visit to the website would probably fulfill and solve all possible queries. And lastly, when you talk about the landscape, the placement landscape, the situation, how was it back then when you were pursuing your master's program? Do you think that COVID probably would have changed it now?
I think specifically in the tax field, there is a very good demand for tax attorneys in New York or US generally. And there's always a good demand because like I was saying that tax is one field which is quite technical. So there are only a handful of people compared to like the larger pool of lawyers that go in for tax. So you will find good opportunities. But I would say that it does matter which university you are graduating from, because there are certain universities which have built like a very strong reputation in that market that if you have studied your tax LLM from say NYU or Georgetown, then you would get a very good possibility of getting an interview and getting a placement because the courses are so robust at these universities. So that's one thing. And there's a lot of opportunity to give interviews on campus. Like this was something in London, it's a little different. So again, it depends on which country you're applying to. Because in London, you either go and become a barrister or you become a solicitor. So you need to sign up for a training contract if you're going for a solicitor, or you have to take up a pupillage if you're doing a barristership. So the recruitment system there is different. Out here in the US, you're in the program, firms will come on campus to interview you for tax roles. And like NYU has their own on-campus placement cells, which happens in the first term, which we call the fall term, and the second term is the spring term. So like I got placed in the fall term in the first term itself, like through on-campus. And then there is also a thing called the tax interview program, the TIP, which happens in spring. It is jointly held by Georgetown and NYU, and it is exclusive for students who are doing the tax LLM at these two universities. And there are a lot of law firms and big four firms which come to recruit at these places. So I would say opportunities are good. And just to briefly touch upon the point that I would also say it's important to take into account like what is the immigration situation in the country wherever you end up applying for, because visa does come into like it's probably one of the questions which might come up on your application form when you're applying for a job. So some firms will sponsor, some may not. So it's good to just look into these things also before.
Very well. There are some really very valuable inputs, valuable insights coming in from our Amicus for today's session. Now, you've done two LLMs, right? Not one, but two, and that too from two different countries. Two different landscapes, UK and then US. If you can talk about the benefits of pursuing these two different LLM courses from absolutely two different geographical locations. Personally, how much did it benefit you, and then at the professional front as well?
Mm-hmm.
And which one did you
I would
enjoy more?
Oh my God, that's a tricky question. I think in terms of like enjoying, I enjoyed both very equally. But like I said, for NYU, my second term was hit by the pandemic. So it was just a very different experience. But in terms of like, I think I made great friends at both universities, Indian as well as international friends. In fact, after my LSE LLM, like I had like a really nice bunch of like this group, and they all traveled to India. They were all Europeans or from US or Latin America. They all came for my wedding also to India. Like we had like a really nice, so that was very memorable and a nice group I have. And I would say I have the same. I was lucky to have a similar group here at NYU. So that's my personal benefit in terms of friend circle and social. But in terms of professionally, I think I have benefited a lot from both the masters. But here I would focus a little more on my NYU LLM for the simple reason that I am in New York and I am doing US tax. So the NYU tax LLM is very heavily focused on practical, like I was saying. So we are actually like learning how to apply the very technical provisions. So it's not just like theory. We are not studying only policy. That's one of the courses, but we need to really understand the technicals of it. So I think what I studied at NYU to a majority extent is what I'm also applying on my day-to-day job here. In fact, this was something like when I was, like I said, I was networking in the beginning with a lot of tax lawyers who are working here. I specifically asked them that which courses should I be taking in the LLM, which you think will help if I join your firm? And they told me that take like, say, international tax 1, 2, 3, corporate tax, etc., which these courses are designed by NYU in a way where you will need to apply what you're learning to the industry. So I think taking those courses, getting that advice was very helpful. Otherwise, I would have not understood anything of what I am doing on a day-to-day basis. So it was very helpful that way.
Fantastic. Now coming to the last segment of our channel, discussing your role and a career, building a successful career as a tax professional. So what exactly is the role of a tax professional who is based in New York or based in the US? If you could talk us through and talk us about the nature of the job, the kind of work that is allocated or assigned to you, and how different is it from the kind of or type of work that is assigned in India?
Mm-hmm. So in India, I was mostly in litigation and I did indirect tax.
Yeah.
So I work mostly in customs. So that experience was very different for me. But then now out here, I'm on corporate and I'm on the direct side of tax. So out here, and the LLM also focuses on that, although you do have an option to take indirect tax subjects as well. Coming to the kind of work, I would say it's good to keep your mind open when you're coming, especially as an international candidate, whether you want to work, you have like multiple options, but I'll just focus on the ones which I've commonly seen people take. One of them is either you go to a big four or like any accounting firm and you join their tax team. The second is maybe you go to a law firm which has a strong tax practice, or maybe you go in-house. A lot of companies, big companies, they have very well developed in-house tax teams. Like you have a legal team, you have like a tax or like a tax team specifically. That's one option. Or you go into like a policy making. But I personally thought that for me, it would be good to first get some exposure by being on the client facing side of it with like either like a big four or like a law firm, and then go in-house, because the kind of training you get is very different. In terms of the work, it depends on which specialization within international tax also you want to go in for. But so it's divided by sectors, by the industries. So like I work on a lot of companies which are technology companies or pharmaceutical companies. Then there we have a team which focuses on private equity and the finance market, like banking and finance. So also a lot of it will depend on whether you're with a law firm or a big four, because your work will be a little different. If you're on the law firm side of it, you will get to work on advisory or on tax controversy, which is the tax litigation side. But if you're working, like say with a big four, any accounting firm, you will also have to look at the financial statements. So in some ways, I think I'm getting to learn a lot because I'm doing tax law, but I'm also having to understand the accounting side of it, because eventually in tax, it's all about numbers. So it's a full package. And I work on a lot of deals, like they are all cross-border, of course. So like mergers and acquisitions, or like if a company is say distributing a dividend, or they are issuing loans, or like if there's a value chain transformation. These are the kind of different topics that come up. And then what we do is, in most cases, our clients are headquartered like in the US with subsidiaries in various countries in Latin America, Europe, Asia, etc. So we try to advise our clients on what is the most tax efficient way in structuring a deal, and what they can do to improve their business presence in those countries, keeping like the tax regulatory or the tax implications in mind. So yeah, so we mostly like do like my team specifically, we do a lot of cross-border work.
Fantastic. Now, when we talk, what would be your piece of advice to all the young law students and lawyers who wish to build a successful career in the field of taxation? If you could recommend any particular internship, any literature?
Yeah, that's definitely would go back to the point that like I tested my interest in tax by doing a moot court, followed by taking up tax in my final year. And then I also worked with a tax law firm in Mumbai. So at that time, I think in terms of advice, I would say definitely try out tax if it's something that you would like to do. And because it's like so technical and a lot of numbers. So, and within tax also, you can choose whether you want to be on the advisory side of it or on the litigation side of it. So like I'm on the advisory side and I'm quite enjoying it. Like in India, I was in litigation. So I first thought that maybe litigation is the only thing I might enjoy. But now when I'm working on these deals, it's very fascinating to see like how companies work. So even advisory is very interesting. So probably like if you have the opportunity, get an internship while you're still studying with a firm which focuses on tax, and try to work with their different departments. And I would say also try out indirect tax if that's something that can interest you, because I did do indirect tax and I think I really enjoyed it. And now I'm enjoying international tax. Like we look at a lot of treaties and how they would work out. So if you like the international aspect of it, get into this. If you like the domestic tax side of it, you can work on like the income tax side, the corporate taxes, and those also. So definitely talk to people who have done who have taken this professional path, and test it for yourself. But if you think this is not something you want to do, it's completely fine. You can go in for other options as well. So don't tie yourself down to anything.
And lastly, who was your mentor in this field?
Apart from my academic mentor, like in my professional thing, I would say like I have a coach who is like a manager on my team, and I talk to her very frequently about whatever issues I have. So I think she's like a very big coach and like a mentor for me. But also at NYU, I was very lucky to be in one of the classes with a professor who is actually also a senior partner at PwC. So he also taught us at NYU. So I go to him for guidance very frequently, like if I'm stuck about what career choices to make. So I would say he's also a mentor. So in general, I think finding a mentor who is from your industry and who has been through an experience and who is also in the same maybe city or country where you are, so that they understand what is the local consideration for that field. It's helpful to have somebody like that as your mentor.
Fantastic. Wow, what a session that was. Thank you so much, Surabhi, for taking out time for doing this brilliant session for all the viewers. And I must congratulate you on a wonderful presentation. And you were bombarded with so many questions and you answered all of them brilliantly with so much of ease, absolutely effortlessly. No, it's not easy to talk about two separate courses in one session, in one episode. And that switch that you made, the transition that you made from LSE to NYU, and subsequently and ultimately to your role as a tax professional, and then maintaining that calm, it's definitely not easy. So thank you so much once again. Really means a lot. To all the viewers who are watching, I think it's this episode kind of exhibits that humility that we were actually looking forward to on the virtual Amicus, because humility plays such an important role in communication. Virtual Amicus is not just about sharing what you've achieved, but also the communicating how you did that, talking about the journey that you've undertaken, the lessons that you've learned, the mistakes that you made, and who was that mentor who guided you throughout. Because of COVID-19, the accessibility was curtailed. So there's so many problems that that had resulted because of this pandemic. So I'm glad that this session happened. And to all the viewers who are watching, our email is mentioned on the channel, so feel free to write to us. In case if you have any doubts on any fundamentals or any topics or any issues with respect to the application procedure on the LSE, LLM, or the NYU, as well as the role of a tax professional in New York. And they also say that humility and merit go together, and merit without humility and humility without merit is always incomplete. So that is what this session was about. That is what our channel is all about. And so I'm glad that this session happened. Anything that you wish to say before we wrap this up as parting words?
I would first want to say thank you for having me for this session and for creating this channel. And just like as a brief background for like all the listeners, I was chatting with Jay just before we started the session, and he did mention that he started this channel, one, because he's also passionate about like journalism, and also because like he wants to make sure that students who don't get the opportunity to meet people due to the pandemic at least get some guidance. So like kudos to you for being so diligent with this and trying to like reach out to people and having them speak and share their experience. This is really amazing. I have myself watched some of your channels, and it's like very interesting. So thank you for that. And definitely, if anybody wants to reach out with any other questions, you can feel free to do that anytime.
Very well. Thank you so much once again to all the viewers who are watching. Email is mentioned. Feel free to write to us. We'll be more than happy to forward the same to our Amicus for today's session. You can directly write to Surabhi as well, or you can write to us and we'll be forwarding the same. So, well, have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself. And we took like probably almost an hour. This session probably would have lasted almost an hour. So thank you so much once again. It's goodbye for now.
Thank you.